Hey guys, it's Randy here at etrailer.com. Now of course we have tons of different cargo management options. Today we're going to be looking at a recessed ring. I like the idea of these because it allows us to have plenty of tie downs all over our trailer, but they don't stick up where they're going to be in the way. Now if you're using something wheeled like the Ranger we've got here, well, you can just roll over them. But let's say you're trying to load a washer and a dryer, or maybe a refrigerator, or something that you kind of have to slide along. Having connection points that stick up and over the surface of your trailer can generally cause those to hang up. Then you got to kind of lift and rotate. Having them nice and smooth, like what we're going to take a look at today, really alleviates a lot of those headaches. Here you can see the recessed tie down from CargoSmart. Basically this gives us a 1,667 pound safe working load limit. And when not connected, the ring will sit flush right down in this pocket. So it's only going to come up off the surface that you're going to mount it to by about 1/4 of an inch. It has a nice matte finish to it, and everything's been coated with a clear zinc. That's going to help to keep corrosion and things like that to a minimum, especially using them on outside utility trailers. But these can also be used in a lot of different situations. I could see a guy installing these on his dock to help tarp something down or strap down maybe a couple of kayaks. This is with that low profile, it's going to prevent you from tripping on it as you're trying to walk around. You can see these in enclosed trailers, mounting them down with the plywood. If you're going to go on plywood, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but we've got a backing plate that you can use for that. And overall, it's just going to give us the convenience of a tie down point that we're not tripping over all the time. That's the biggest headache. You always want to use straps in pairs. So in this application with this Ranger, we're going to put 4 of them on. We're going to have 1 on each corner essentially. Give us excellent points to connect our straps to and ensure that this is going to be there when we get where we're going. It offers the circular connection point that you can see here, and that inside diameter is 1 3/8 inches. So if you're using a standard ratchet strap like what we have here, or if you need something a little bit heavier and it has like the double J hook, shouldn't have any issue at all getting these connected. Now to go along with these, we do recommend using a good set of ratchet straps. For our Polaris here, we're using a 4-pack of straps from eTrailer. They're going to be 12 foot long. We've built a lot of nice features into these. We've got the keepers, so you don't have to worry about them coming loose. We've got the hook and loop here to help keep your strap nice and tidy and bundled up. As you can see, it's also going to have a nice wider handle, rubber coated, as well as your release. The main body is pretty standard for a ratchet strap. These offer a 1,200 pound per capacity strap, so kind of tie up pretty well with these. But we do have straps that offer higher capacities. If you're going to use 4 or 6 of these for larger loads, there's a nice set from Erickson available as well. I think they've got a 3,300 pound capacity. Let's do a great job also. Now as far as recessed tie downs go, this isn't the only one that we have available. There are plenty of them out there. There's one from Brophy that's a rotating D-ring. It's more of a circular shape. It's a larger pocket that sits down in your trailer, so you'll need a little bit larger hole in your trailer to get it to recess. But that has a D-ring in it that you kind of tilt it up and then you can rotate it. So in our situation, I like this one because we can just pull straight back. We know this is what we're going to have on this trailer. If you're unsure about it though, that one that rotates might be a little bit better option for you, since if you're going to strap this way, you could turn it a little bit. But no matter what angle you pull on this ring at, it's going to be nice and secure. Now one thing you do want to be sure to keep in mind is that the hardware is not included. We'll give you a little bit more detail about what type of hardware and length of hardware depending on your application a little bit later. But just so you have a heads up, hardware is not included. We're using 3/8 inch carriage bolts. They fit in really well and sit down nice and flush. Overall, I think these are going to be an excellent solution for a lot of folks out there. If I were going to be strapping down something along this size, I think these are definitely what I would go with. There are heavier options out there, offer higher capacities, so if you're going to be doing, medium to large tractors, trucks, things like that, you might want to think about something a little bit bigger, but I think in this size range, this trailer range, these are an excellent choice. Now to begin our installation process, of course you need to decide where you want it to go. Kind of plan out the different loads you think you're going to have and get it in a position where it's going to be the most beneficial for you. Now, this trailer is pretty much dedicated to hauling this UTV. That's what our customer wants. It's what it's intended for. So we're going to be mounting ours on the 2 front corners so we can run the strap around through and then secure it down. I like to have this edge pointing away from the direction I intend my strap to come from. Now we can hook onto this at really any angle that we want and it's going to work fine. I just like kind of having that straight line pull. I think it makes it just a little bit more sturdy. We're not side pulling one way or another. And once we've decided where we're going to mount it, we're going to bring it down. My guards is going to be going right in this area. We're going to have to cut a hole, right, for that to be recessed down and in. And that, again, is going to depend on the material you're using. Now, some customers have asked me in the past a couple different questions about this type of system, like, do I need to use a backing plate for it? And it depends on your mounting surface. If you're mounting this to sturdy steel, I don't see any need in the world for a backing plate. The steel is going to be more sturdy than the backing plate would. Another question that I've gotten on it is whether it can be mounted between 2 pieces of wood. So like on a utility trailer, a lot of times you'll have lumber that runs front to back. And some people want to put it right in between 2 pieces. And I think in that case you'd be fine. I don't really see any issues with mounting it in that area. I would recommend doing a backing plate just to keep our bolts running straight up and down. If those pieces of wood try to move, they might try to pull the bottom of those bolts out slightly. I definitely think a backing plate's a good idea when using this in plywood. I think even up to like 1/2-inch plywood, that backing plate's just going to spread that energy out over a greater area. In this application, going into 2x lumber, I'm just going to mount it right down. We're going to use some 3/8-inch carriage bolts to get it secure. So I'll give you a little bit of a guide on what your situation might call for, but be smart about it. It's always better to over-secure your tie down than under-secure it. Taking those couple extra steps to make sure you've got plenty of holding power, it's always a good idea. Now, like I said, we're going to be mounting ours up here in the front corner. We're replacing an old tie down that was here. And something I like, we can use the packaging that comes with it almost as a template. So we'll position that where we want it there. And I'm going to use that to mark the floor or whatever surface you're going to. You see, hole saws would work. You'd have to cut your hole here, but then you're still going to need to trim it out. So usually when I do these, I'll just use a jigsaw. That way I can go in, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut inside this line about a blade width. I'm going to do that all the way around. Then I'm going to test it. I'll fit it down in there. If I need to take out a little bit more material, I always can. I just don't want to get my hole cut too big. So we want some meat between the hole and where our carriage bolts are going to go through. So now we'll just go around that line like we've talked about and see how it fits. All right, we got our first kind of rough draft, we'll call it, done there. Let's see how it's looking. It still won't go in, so it looks like at this point we're pretty close. We've just got the 2 widest edges here that we need to relieve a little bit on each side for, and we can refit it. Once we have that general shape out, you can see we've got areas there for our bolts on each side. Looks pretty good, pretty solid there, so we'll just make sure we got it square how we like it. We can mark each of our holes and we'll drill that 3/8 hole. Now we can take one last look, make sure we get it squared up again, and since I'm going to be using 3/8 carriage bolts, I'm going to use a 3/8 drill bit. I'm just going to use this as the template to mark where I want those holes to go. Now that we got our holes drilled out, we'll get our carriage bolts in place there. We can head underneath and get our hardware installed. You can see I'm using flat washers. I'm also going to use nylon lock nuts. I think this gives us a great way to get them secured. Now, if you don't have nylon lock nuts, at least use a regular nut and a lock washer. That way you'll have some protection against these backing out. Now, since I'm using the nylon lock nut here, I just want to get it to where I've got about a thread showing or so. I want my bolts to be pretty close to 2 inches in this situation. This is an 1.5 inch piece of wood, thickness wise. And I don't really want these bolts to hang down a long way. You don't want them to get snagged on anything or have to worry about them. So that's what I'm doing on this 1x. I think this is going to be a pretty common application for a lot of you guys. But if you're in an enclosed trailer, that backing plate that we offer, basically your plywood's only going to be, say, 3/8 of an inch or a 1/2 inch. Maybe it is 3/4, but that backing plate's going to come out like this. It's almost square. It's a little bit rectangular shape, but then your bolts will come right down through that, so you can eliminate the washers. Just put in some nylon lock nuts at that point and have it nice and secure there too. If you're using a 3/4 inch thick piece of plywood, you'll probably want these to be about 1.25 inches, 1/2 inch plywood, and probably still stay with about 1.25 inch bolt. Now making our connection is going to be pretty easy. We just want to get our ring up where we can get our strap on. Bring it around. And that'll provide a really nice connection point to give us plenty of security for our rig.